I hop on a plane, I come to the States, and I couldn't find a job.
I didn't want to have a weak son. You had been sort of protected, and I thought that it was time for me to let you go and have you go out there and discover what was there. And I knew it was going to be tough. And it was.
Tough.
But I was there always.
The rest is history. You were trained by Sealand to deal with frozen food distribution?
I was trained by them, and then I was named head of that department 2 years into the job.
Okay.
It was a great stepping stone, and I had made my decision that I wanted to spend 5 years there. It was my first job.
At what age did you start?
21.
Did you last the 5 years?
4 years, 11 months, and 22 days.
Why did you leave early? Why didn't you hit the 5 year mark?
Well, there were a lot of very talented guys there, but you could see that they were very complacent over time. It was a job that paid very well at the time, but they had been overlooked by life by staying there. They had not progressed. There wasn't a lot of progression once you got to, for example, the position that I was in.
So complacency in your life doesn't exist?
I wouldn't say it doesn't exist. I would say that I can't afford it.
You had, 3 girls by then?
No, not yet. I had been recently married when I got that job. I had my first girl 3 years down the road. But then I had boom, boom, boom. So by the 5 years, I had 3.
3 eating children.
Demanding, crying, toys, milk.
Everything.
And a good life.
You're 26, right?
I was 25.
25, okay.
And one of the accounts that I was visiting, that I covered, I had a good opportunity. I saw into it, and the opportunity came up for me to buy into that company.
It was like a supermarket chain?
Frozen food distribution company.
Mm-hmm.
And I bought into it. And
how much money did you have to put in? Do you remember?
I do.
You don't want to say it?
I had purchased and sold homes, and I had raised some money. So I had to put about $250,000 to buy. Back then, there was a lot of money to buy into that company.
What did that get you percentage-wise?
That got me into a lot of trouble because I got in with the wrong guy.
Yeah, but you bought, half the company for that?
Yeah, pretty much, because I had ideas to put into the company, and the company wasn't well run.
So you were like the silent partner that wasn't silent?
No, after that I got involved. And I started to
run it.
Actively address the direction of the company.
Okay.
I was looking very much into the future. I guess that maybe at the time I was looking too much into the future. And I was trying to become a full-line
distributor,
frozen food distributor. Because from the beginning I understood, and because of my involvement with Sealand, that the opportunity was there.
Mm-hmm.
The distribution system was really screwed up, and it hurt more than helped businesses.
There was financial issues in the company?
Well, there were financial issues, and I wasn't aware of them because I had trust. And eventually, the company ran out of money because the guy was
taking it.
So one day, the accountant came to my house to tell me that they were going to file bankruptcy.
What did you do?
I told him that I was not any part of a bankruptcy.
Okay. And what happened?
I took over the company.
And then what happened?
I ended up in a hospital.
In a hospital because of just the pressure, right?
Yeah.
So you took over the company. You end up in a hospital because of the pressure.
I had to pay the guy to get rid of him.
How much did you have to pay?
I got rid of the guy. I just wasn't ready. I wasn't ready then. I've never been ready.
Ready in the sense
For a
of
bankruptcy.
Oh, for a bankruptcy, yeah.
The company owed the bank $1,100,000.
Which is not that much.
It was then.
Back then
A
it
lot of
was,
money.
but not now.
Not now. Now it's nothing.
So what did you do? You negotiated with the bank
The bank was not helpful. Banks are not helpful most of the time.
most of the time.
After a few years, I was able to
Turn it around.
turn around and sell the company to, at that time, to Borden's for $1 million, which I paid the bank.
So the bank came out.
I totally paid the bank, and I asked the bank for a letter stating that I had honored my commitment.
Your commitment. Now, how old are you now?
About 29 years of age.
So it took 4 years to fix that.
Oh, it was 4 tough years. My dad passed away, and I had a very severe
Cut it. You quiere una servilleta?
I came prepared.
So then you sell the company, and what's your next decision?
I honored my commitment to them. It was important. It's always been important to honor your reputation. That's the only thing you have, your name.
That's one of the things that you've taught me, yeah? Your name is super important. Your reputation is super important.
You have nothing else.
You win money, you
have
lose
today,
money. Yeah.
Money you lose tomorrow.
Yeah.
You can always come back.
What happens? You go into frozen distribution. Is this when you open
Well,
Teacher
I made a friendship with a very large company in the East Coast, and the guy and I, this guy's name is John Rotelli. I called him and I said, I want to do something like what you're doing in Puerto Rico.
John was your mentor.
John became my mentor.
Okay. Your late 20s, you call him.
And I wrote to him and I called him and I said, look, I'd like to do something in a full line concept of frozen food, which is what he did.
In Puerto Rico.
Yeah, would you come down here? And he did. It so happened that he drove the same exact car that I drove. Same exact color.
By then, his company was pretty large, though, right?
It was a $500 million company.
So that's a pretty large company.
He was the largest frozen food distributor in the East Coast.
So why do you think he took an interest in going to Puerto Rico and a young guy calling him up? It was sort of like a cold call, no?
Yes.
You knew him? Had you
No.
Never done business with him?
I know that I contacted him out of nowhere. And John was a very visionary guy, and he was always looking to expand. He was ambitious. He wanted to grow.
He was a risk taker.
He was conservative, but risky. And the good thing about John is, he did business on a handshake.
Which I like doing business like that.
Well, I don't know that nowadays that works, but it's always been that way. It either works or it doesn't work,
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
He saw the opportunity, and we started to build the business around that.
And that company you built was TH de la Cruz.
No, International Foods. And from there, I went into the chicken business. Chicken distribution business.
Chicken distribution with frozen food.
With frozen food, but more towards chicken. Because I had some good brands.
You had Cooking Good.
I had Cooking Good, and then
Purdue.
we did so well that we got the Purdue distribution too. Yeah.
Right.
I know that there was the movement from chicken went to ice cream.
Yeah, but I mean, you had chicken in Puerto Rico.
And then I started with ice cream.
Right. In Puerto Rico, at that time, Tyson was dumping chicken.
Yes.
Right? So they were killing the market. Yeah.
Leg quarters, yes. They wanted to get rid of the dark meat, and Puerto Rico was a very, very large chicken consumer and a very large dark meat consumer.
Yeah. So then that happens, right? And you can't compete with Tyson dumping chicken in an island.
No.
And then there was also a local distributor.
There were two local distributors that were very strong,
Rico
and they spent millions of dollars in advertising.
Yeah.
And we did very well with our brand, extremely well, because I had a good product and they did not. I had a graded product, they did not. Everything about it was different. The presentation, we had tray pack, they were boxed. Everything about it was
very different.
Yeah. Even the color, it was yellow versus a white chicken.
Nowadays, the war between both of you guys is taught in college, right?
It is. It's called the chicken war.
The chicken war. Yeah, I remember. I mean, I was really small, but I remember that we even had to hire security and all that. It was pretty serious.
They threatened me.
Yeah. They threatened you. In Puerto Rico, people don't play. So what happens? At that point, you decide to go into ice cream, and your first company you purchased? No, okay.
I didn't decide to. A company that I represented, Pillsbury, called me one day and said, go and buy a company, a distribution of one of our brands in Puerto Rico from this
guy.
Builder.
Right.
And the name of the brand was
Häagen-Dazs. How do you explain? You sort of give us a little background on that deal, because I think it's so important for the next chapter.
I went on and I said, look, I'm interested in buying your distribution rights. What do I have to do? Well, we've got a certain commitment with some doctors that wanted to buy the brand. And the stores, they had 4 or 5 stores, and they had distribution. But we're going to hold a bid on such and such a day, and you can bid. And they sent me the bidding papers, and the bid was for $1 million. And I decided that even though Pillsbury wanted me to buy it, I wasn't going to pay $1 million for an ice cream brand.
What did you do with that letter?
That's a funny story.
That's why
because I got the letter and I tossed it and I put it in the wastebasket.
In the garbage.
And that same afternoon, I had a monthly meeting with the head of my accounting firm. It was Deloitte & Touche. And that same afternoon, he walked in. We would meet once a month and look at opportunities. And he asked me, and I told him, well, Pillsbury told me to buy this brand, and I went to see them, and they sent me this paper. They want $1 million. I ain't going to pay $1 million for that. Where's the paper? Went down, got the paper out of the wastebasket, and opened the paper up. He said, well, this is not worth $1 million, but it's worth $780,000. I'm not going to pay $780,000 for a brand of ice cream. But we decided that based on the fact that Pillsbury had insisted that I do that we would participate, and the strategy that we devised was to get a jockey, somebody who was close to the guy that was selling. The guy that was selling was sick. He had cancer. He was going to die. So they wanted to orderly sell the business. We got this accountant that was Cuban, a very nice guy, by the way, and we went on to bid.
What did you bid?
Well, Pillsbury never told me certain secrets that they had of their control over the brand, although I knew that by the law they had control over the brand. So I went and I bid $85,000.
$85,000.
And they had...
What happened?
They had 4 doctors. They had bid $1 million or more, because doctors had that kind of money too, and they didn't know what they were doing. So the bid day came, but it was Pillsbury who had to approve
of the distributor.
the buyer. And Pillsbury, they presented the award for these other things, and Pillsbury told them, no to this one, no to this one, no to this one. The only one we approve is Thomas Ward.
For 85.
And I bought it for 85.
I love it. Okay. Because that's what happens, man. They had full control over that. I mean, they had full control over that bidding process. Mm-hmm. They weren't going to sell it to people that didn't know the industry.
But they never told me that. They should have told me.
You would have bidded less. No, I'm kidding.
No. I think that I bid in conscience what I thought, based on the cash flow the company was worth, the line was worth.
It had how many trucks? I think it had 2 trucks, I remember.
It had 4 trucks.
4 trucks?
Yeah,
4 trucks.
4 trucks.
But it was a small distributor.
But it required additional investment to be able to island-wide distribute the product.
Sure.
And you know that because you went through it.
Yeah. So I grew up in it. So then you decide, you do that, you buy chicken. The chicken business is not doing well.
Yeah, it got challenging because Tyson was too powerful. And
you didn't have the support, you would say, from Purdue.
My company, they couldn't afford to compete with Tyson and lose 25 cents a pound. You know, it really became crazy. So I decided. By then I had been more exposed to the ice cream opportunity, and then I decided to play out the ice cream opportunity. Mm-hmm. I saw the possibility of consolidating the ice cream industry, and I went after it.
How do you go from, okay, so you make the decision of owning, and consolidating the ice cream distribution business. There was a company with a really great name, right?
There were 8 distributors
at that time.
Yeah, but the oldest company was this one called Pico. Yeah, it was a 70-year-old company, manufacturing company.
And I remember that you told your banker from the window
of the Chase Manhattan Bank, 15th floor,
that you were going to buy that company. The office of the president.
I'm going to buy that company.
Okay. So let's go to that process, right? So you're going to buy the company. It goes into a bid.
The company had closed down. The piece of property that they manufacture in was right smack in the middle of the Golden Mile where all the banks were.
Yeah.
So the real estate was too valuable, and the company
was worth nothing.
Was worthless because they had gone bankrupt.
Mm-hmm. It was owned by a group from New York.
No, it was owned by Beatrice Holdings. That was a division of Beatrice Foods. And Beatrice Holdings was this bag of companies that Beatrice Foods had divested of outside of the United States.
But it was owned by a lawyer firm in New York.
It was owned by a lawyer firm.
It was owned by a lawyer firm in New York. They had just bankrupted the company because they had some production situations, right, with ammonia.
They had a union problem.
A union problem and ammonia problem.
Well, they had an ammonia problem because they were in the center of the Golden Mile, of the banking area, and it was a problem for them.
Right. So you tell your banker, I'm going to buy that company. He tells you you're crazy.
That's exactly what he said.
Right?
Yeah.
He said you're crazy.
Yeah.
Okay. You don't have the money for
Never let a banker tell you what to do.
Yeah. You want to buy the company. You put in a bid. What was your bid? I think it was $7 million.
There's a little story before that.
Okay. What's the story?
A company from Pennsylvania gets involved in buying the company. Mm-hmm. I was doing my investigation work, and it came down to the fact that they were going to buy the company, and I wanted that company because they had 5,000 pieces of equipment on premises that I would take over. And even if the equipment was old, you had the equipment on the premise, and I could substitute it, and I would have distribution island-wide.
Mm-hmm. Instantly.
And then they had brands that they owned that were very well known in Puerto Rico.
Mm-hmm.
And they were in every segment of the money. Low end, middle end, high end.
Yeah.
And Häagen-Dazs was a very high-end product. So I needed to come with a family of products that made feasible
The distribution.
Yeah.
Because it's expensive, right? You have to keep this product -10 at all times.
15.
-15. At that time, Pico had how many trucks?
Pico had 6 trucks that when I bought the company, I tried to transfer to my warehouse, and they all broke down
right.
on the turnpike.
But we'll get to that story. But let's go to the Pennsylvania story. So what happens? These guys are going to buy the company. You find out that they are John Rotelli's biggest customer.
I find out that they're from Pennsylvania, and I call John and I ask him, "Do you know these people? I want to buy this company." And
Gives me goosebumps.
I want to buy this company, and these guys are in the middle of it, and I can't compete with them. He says, "I am their biggest customer."
What does John do?
He says, "I'll call you back in 15 minutes. He calls them. He tells them to be there next day at 3 o'clock
In the
in
afternoon.
his office, that he has to see them. A guy by the name of Ray Danshak.
I remember Ray Danshak.
And he calls me back with an American Airlines guidebook. He says, "You can take the 11 o'clock flight, and you'll be here, and I will have my helicopter next to the airplane to pick you up so that you can be here at 2:30. But he didn't know anything of what I was going to do.
Okay.
So you'll have half an hour to explain to me what is it that you want to do. So that happened.
You got on the plane.
I got on the plane. I was
You
in
get
the
off
first
the plane.
seat. They opened the door. The pilot was there. He took me down into the
Helicopter.
helicopter. They flew me, and I landed in front of his office. And I told him I wanted to consolidate the ice cream industry, and I could do that starting with this company.
You're in that office. Ray Danshak is about to come in. You tell John in half an hour, "I want to do this." What does John do at that point?
Yeah, John was a funny character. He never telegraphed his punches. So he says, "Okay." They come in. We meet them. We meet with them. And of course, he was their largest customer. So he says to them, in a short story, it was a longer than this, but a short story, "You don't have anything to do in Puerto Rico. You have nothing to get into in Puerto Rico for. So we're going to do that." All of a sudden, we're going to do that. I hadn't even agreed with him on anything. You get out, but what we'll do is we'll give you the manufacturing. Here I am. He's already giving the manufacturing. It was a funny day. So they said to him, "Give us 15 minutes. They went outside into a corner, both of them there, and they came back, and I said, "That's okay, John. We wanted to buy the company, but we won't get in. We'll make a deal with you." And that is what happened.
You made a deal. They were going to walk away from buying the company.
They were going to walk away because they were already advanced. They were going to buy the company.
They were going to buy. So you don't have the money to buy this company.
No.
So you get on a plane. You don't have the money to buy this company. John doesn't know that.
Money?
Wait. Don't say that yet. John doesn't know it, that you don't have the money.
No.
Okay, great.
He doesn't have any idea what I'm going to do.
Okay, great. So you arrive in Puerto Rico, and what happens? 2 days after. Because I know this story.
The bank calls me. Chase Manhattan. "Mr. Ward, there is $1 million in your account. What do you want to do with this money?" And I said, "Where did the money come from?"
John Rotelli wired you $1 million.
He didn't tell me.
Didn't tell you. No deal, no paper, nothing. Handshake.
Not even a handshake.
Not even a handshake.
That's how much he trusted me, though.
So what were you going to say about money?
Money is not something you need.
Okay.
The money flows when the ideas are there. It all comes together. You know, whenever you get concerned about the money first, it doesn't work.
Right.
That's my experience.
Well, no, it's my experience too. There's no disagreement there. So what happens?
So I call him. I said,
what's this
what
million
the
for?
hell is this? Well, go ahead and buy the company. We'll agree
figure it
to
out.
whatever. And you can pay me back little by little.
Wow. So you end up buying the company.
I bid for the company, and of course I won.
Sure.
But the story doesn't end then. Once when I end up, they call me and they tell me that I was the bidder, I was the winner.
Mm-hmm.
Borden turns around,
Starts dealing with the governor.
to stop me from doing it, and they bid twice as much as I had already won. Yeah, so that ended up in court. I had to go to court to defend my position, and
You won.
It's another long story, but I won.
Yeah. And here comes, I think, another really great story is that you are transporting these trucks to your new facility and they all break down on the side of the road.
Yeah. It relates to money, too.
It relates to money.
Yeah.
Because you bought the company, but now you have to expand it and you have to invest money in it.
And I didn't have
And you didn't have the money.
I wanted to get a new fleet
Mm-hmm.
because that was power. And I didn't have the money. So I'm transporting the ice cream boxes in the trucks to look at buying
New trucks.
Yeah. And they all get stuck in the turnpike even before they paid for the toll. So I had to hire
To just pull them into the shop, right?
yeah.
And what happens that day? Who shows up at your office?
A guy,
Dominido.
Dominido.
And what does he say?
He didn't know me. He had read about me or heard about me. And he told me that if I had the courage to take on the local chicken industry, that he wanted
No, I almost cry on this story. For real. Like, this is...
I'm loving these stories.
This is such a good story.
Yeah. I cry on this story because this guy is like...
this is beginning to be a little tough. Okay, let's rock and roll.
Yeah.
Here we go.
So
Dominido walks into your office, says, you got balls. What is he going to do?
if you had the balls to take on the local chicken industry, I want to finance anything you want to do.
So he gave you a line of credit, I remember, for $20 million?
No. He told me that if I needed trucks, I said, well, it depends on how much you're going to charge me for the interest. I was so dumb. And he says, I'll finance whatever trucks you want to buy. So I went on.
You signed a line of credit of $20 million? No.
No. He first gave me a line of credit of about $2-3 million to buy trucks.
To buy trucks.
That ended up
into a $20 million line of credit, which later on, guys...
$22 million line of credit.
22. I want to express, Tommy Nido passed away.
Young guy.
Young guy, yeah, from a heart attack.
30-some
yeah.
years old.
But years later, I met one of the lawyers for GE Capital at that point, and he told me that Tommy had done this loan based on a character, right? Character loan.
He put his job on the line when I went on to buy the second company.
Right.
I needed another $700,000 then, and I still didn't have all this huge line of credit. But his boss said, "No, we don't want to do that yet. This and that." He says, "If I cannot give this loan, you don't need me here." And the boss told him, if you feel that way, go ahead and do it. And I bought the second company 5 minutes before the term to purchase it expired.
So let's fast forward a little bit. You build this huge company, probably the largest ice cream distributor in Latin America, from a small island, 100 by 35, 100 routes, right? 110 routes. It was selling $70 million, $80 million at the time.
Yes.
And then Nestle comes in and decides they want to buy it. I fast forwarded many years because obviously...
by that point, I had purchased all of the distributors.
So you had 100% of the market except Eddie's.
No, except Borden's. Except what Nestle had purchased that was a manufacturing plant that Borden had there.
Right.
They had purchased that from the Borden company that went out of business. They purchased, and then they call it Nevada ice cream plant.
Nevada ice cream plant.
Yeah.
That deal took about 2 years in the making, and then finally it happened. They buy you, or they buy half the company, right? And then you guys...
No, they bought the whole company, but
with
it was
a deal.
It was a deal structured in 50% upfront and 50% in the back.
Then you end up in court.
With Nestle.
With Nestle company.
Biggest food company in the world.
Funny thing is, when we talk about this story, I always laugh because you had how many lawyers at this time? 4?
I had 3 different law firms
involved.
I had a law firm for the federal court, I had a law firm for the local court, and I had a lawyer administering the other 2 law firms.
Right. I remember that we talked about every meeting would cost you $7,500 an hour.
Give or take.
Okay. So then now you're bleeding money, and obviously you don't have a lot of time to keep going.
Well, this is when we were going to do the second settlement because they had acted to displace value.
Right.
And I was the surviving company. Nestle was no longer Nestle; it was Pico.
Mm-hmm.
So Pico was the surviving entity for all the distribution.
Ultimately, though, you printed...
Lucky.
No, you didn't get lucky. I mean, you printed in every newspaper in the world?
Somebody had a brilliant idea that I had sued Nestle for $200 million, and I was running the company, and I knew their weak points, and I knew that they were very scared of anything that encompassed their brand and their reputation. And they were sued, and I knew that because they were in the whole world, everybody had something to hold against them. So this girl from my advertising company, from my public relations company, came up with the idea, let's print the
headline.
Not the headline, la demanda, the
lawsuit.
The lawsuit in every language. So I spent $25,000.
The best $25,000 ever because...
And it went to the whole world. To the whole world.
And you started getting calls from other people
No,
they had done it. They did.
They did. Bebe, which is their home base, started to get calls from all over the world. What is this you're trying to do to a Puerto Rican businessman?
They settled within a week?
They settled within 10 days.
10 days.
2 o'clock in the morning, the president of Nestle North America was on the phone. 2 o'clock in the morning for him, he was on the phone with me in Puerto Rico to settle.
Yeah.
And that was the end of that.
So you settle, basically, and within 2 weeks you're out of a job, right?
Well, it was already the time.
You already the time to finish.
And they had people in the company, although I was running it and I was the president, they had already brought in people to assume positions.
So then what happens? Now you got paid, you disconnected from the electric line that you've been connected for the last, how long? 22 years?
450 volt line that I had been connected to all my life.
Yeah. And I remember that you didn't even know what to do, right?
I got very depressed.
So here we are. You sell your company for many millions of dollars. I remember you got depressed. I think you even rented an office in a small building in Old San Juan.
One of these things like
Yeah,
this.
shared spaces.
Shared spaces, yes.
So that you could...
Two very small offices.
Two very small offices, so you could go every day. And I remember that you would go every day and you would look at your stocks and you would be not depressed, but you didn't know what to do, right?
Yeah, well, yeah.
So
Yes.
I was just graduating college. So we got into the real estate business in between here and Orlando and then in Puerto Rico. Pretty deep and quick. We went quick. And that was in 05, right? 06, 05, 06.
06, 07.
And then 06, 07.
Yeah.
And then obviously we have the market turn in 07, 08, right? And in 08, you decide to buy a supermarket.
Yeah.
And we go into the supermarket business. I was playing golf and working at Champions Gate. And at this point, I was in financial trouble. And you did the best thing that you could ever do and tell me, you're not going bankrupt. You're going to go talk to this lawyer.
No, you're not going to go bankrupt.
Yeah. He didn't fix my problem, but we went to this lawyer and I ended up negotiating out of it. So
If I would have fixed your problem, you would have had it again.
I've never had it again.
You never had it again, and you will never have it again because you remember
It sucked.
what happened.
Yeah.
But you didn't go bankrupt.
I didn't. I got out.
You know, I don't believe in bankruptcy.
I don't. I know. You don't. So anyways, we go into the supermarket business. I don't know anything about it.
Neither did I.
Neither you, but you hired a person that knew very much.
I did. Yeah, but that was a bad deal. That was a bad deal. The supermarket business in Puerto Rico is not feasible, and I was just looking for something to do
To do and to have cash flow, right?
to have cash flow, sure. But that wasn't the right decision. But it was what it was.
So you go into the supermarket business. I know that we had a very tough time because we bought a store in what is the biggest, I don't want to call it, I mean, what would you call it? It's not the
Housing project.
It's the housing project, the largest housing project in Puerto Rico. And this supermarket was right in the middle, smack in the middle of it, basically. And, you know, it was sort of an adjustment. I come back from the States into this kind of operation, and it's like hitting you with reality because you're dealing with a lot of different humans. And so it was kind of a shock, I would say. But I worked there from 08 to 2010. And then at that point, I had told you to buy a small supermarket in Carolina, right?
Yes.
We saw it a couple times. You said you didn't like it. And this is a lesson, right? I go to Israel Copel and I tell him that I want to buy the supermarket with no money, typical. He calls you, right? And he asks you, what? What is your son trying to do here? Buy a supermarket with no money?
Yeah.
And I think that serves for the best lesson that I ever got, which I got fired, but you don't like to say that. You like to say it's a lesson. It's not in the script. You don't want to talk about it. You don't want to talk about it, but I use it. Listen,
I don't want to talk about it, but there's nothing that I feel ashamed of. I didn't want to have a weak son. I wanted you to be successful. And, it was a time for you that, you had been sort of protected, and I thought that it was time for me to let you go and have you go out there and discover what was there to be had. And I knew it was going to be tough. And it was.
Was tough as fuck.
Tough love.
Tough.
But I was there always.
Oh, I know. But you, I hop on a plane in May, and I come to the States and I couldn't find a job. So I obviously felt like
you
shit.
were a prince.
I lived like a prince. Yeah. I'm not going to lie. I mean, I lived like a prince.
And I have no regrets. But I didn't want to have a failed prince.
Right. So then that happens. I come to the States. I went to Miami first. I couldn't find a job. I find a job working with a guy that had liquor stores there.
That was abusing.
Yeah. That lasted several days. I moved back to Orlando. Couldn't find a job. And I found a job with Fresh Market in Coconut Grove. And I worked there for about 3 months. And then it didn't work out. I wasn't going to make enough money to be able to live in Miami. And I moved back to Orlando. And you offer me to go back to school.
But you found your own. You moved and you found your own answers.
No, I know. But I'm just saying you offered me to go back to school. I didn't get in. Rollins didn't accept me because I had a low GMAT score. Right? And I remember going back to Puerto Rico for Christmas. And you saying like it's done, like you got to figure out what the hell you're gonna do because I'm not gonna support you anymore, right? And I call a friend, and that's when the food truck happens, and I go into the restaurant business and whatever.
The rest is history.
The rest is history. But years later, right, I make a call saying that I want to go into the restaurant business. This is 2013. Now you've moved to the States.
I have decided.
You had decided to move to the States.
It's time to leave Puerto Rico.
Yeah. And I call you and I go, hey, I want to open a restaurant. And I remember you saying, I'll invest if you want to build multiple outlets.
That's not what I said. Similar. What I said was, if you want to open up, I flew up, I saw the restaurant, I didn't like it, and I said, if you want to buy a restaurant and this is what you want to do, I'll support you.
Uh-huh.
If you want to make 100 restaurants, I will get involved with you.
And that happened. So it's all good in the hood. So then here we have a series of questions that I guess we're going to go back. The story is great. But what made you want to be an entrepreneur?
My dad was a CPA. I saw him suffer working his back off.
Okay.
And he had no backup to be able to have the money coming in unless he worked. And that's not something that I wanted to do. I wanted to be able to create something that would be sustainable.
Mm-hmm.
Plus, I had a family that I had to support. So,
do you think that was mostly the pressure that kept you going, right? Because I always have that situation, right? What keeps you going? Sometimes you want to give up. Sometimes you're sitting on the sidelines, like feeling sorry for yourself, but you got to keep going.
I couldn't afford to feel sorry for myself.
Right.
I had a lot of kids, and I wanted the best for them, so I had to keep going. Don't look back.
So to give a little bit of history, so that people, or not history, a little background. You had 4 girls and me, all right? In Puerto Rico, there is not a public school system that works. And all my sisters studied in the best schools in Boston. And we were in private school in Puerto Rico. At that point, you woke up the first day of the year with a $250,000 nut. Is that accurate? To pay all the colleges, to pay the schools and everything, that was going to cost you $250,000 a year.
It wasn't going to cost me. It costed me.
But I'm just saying, you woke up
250 to 3
250 to 300,000
a year.
A year.
Where I have it or not.
That's the thing, right? So you wake up with that pressure. There's no other answer, just to go and perform, right? Just produce. So I guess you saw that in your father. You decide to be an entrepreneur. You had me working from when I was probably 12, 13 in the trucks.
Yes.
Why? Why did you think it was a good idea? Because obviously now I have my work. You know, I work very hard, so it was a great thing.
I wanted you to be a strong character, somebody that would spend the time and dedicate his life to be successful.
Right.
And be strong, not dependent.
Was that true with your girls?
No. But they had to work in college while they were studying, at least a part-time. They had to go to a clothing store or to any kind of a store and work part-time so they could be in touch with reality.
Right.
And see what other people felt, what life was all about.
Right. I didn't have that reality in college till I think second year or third year that you said I had to get a job. And by the way, I got a job at Lacoste, and the manager didn't want to take me because she thought that I was, one of these rich kids, which was true. But I became the top salesman in that store, and ended up spending all the money that I made back into to buying Lacoste. So it was a funny story, but till this day I talk to her. She was a great manager. Did you manage to have work-life balance?
No, I was a workaholic.
Do you regret that now?
Yes.
Really?
Yes.
Why?
Because I gave the best years of my life away from all you guys to be able to make your life easier.
Right. So.
And that, at the end of the day, wasn't that important. It was important, but I wasn't able to keep a balance.
So yeah, we fight with that all the time about the work-life balance. It's hard, right?
You can't be successful and have a wonderful life at the same time, just like nothing. That doesn't work that way.
You have
At
to
least
give up.
it didn't work that way for me.
Well, no, you have to give up a lot of things to be able to be successful, and I think people don't understand that. I think everybody likes to think that there's a that you can have a balance and you can have time with the family and all that, and I don't.
Bullshit.
I think it's bullshit. I agree with you on that one.
Success is dedication, unwavered dedication,
Success is unwavering.
unwavered commitment.
Yeah. It's a commitment to move forward. Yeah. What would you say was an oh shit moment in your career? What was your oh shit? The John Rotelli $1 million deposit? Or was there any other moment? I remember that you said maybe one day in the beach that you didn't think things were going to work out, and all of a sudden everything just started falling into place. What was that oh shit moment?
What is the definition of an oh shit day?
Like you said, okay, here's where my life changed. Because
my
of this.
oh shit day was at the age of 26 when I had a very severe depression when my dad died.
Why was that your oh shit? Because just like everything.
Because I
changed.
had 3 kids and I was practically impaired.
You went to the hospital for a week?
Yeah, 10 days. And I didn't know what a depression was. So they told me, you have a depression. And I said, who cures that? You need a psychologist or psychiatrist. Bring me one immediately.
And they wanted to put you to drink pills, right?
They did.
They did.
I was numb for 6 months.
And after 6 months, you literally just stopped taking the medicine.
One day, I walked into the psychiatrist, who was a guy that would put out one cigarette with the other one. And I told him,
no more.
this is it. I'm not going to live this way. So I told him, this is it. Take me off the pills today.
Oh, I can't do that.
I can't do that. I had a clinical neurosis. I was going to die of a heart attack.
You thought.
It was a neurosis. That's what my thought thing would be. And I told him, that I didn't care, that I wanted him to remove it. So what he did is that he said, I'll start to lower the doses today.
You stopped taking the medicine.
No, I couldn't. He told me that I couldn't do that because he would hamper my health. So, but he told me that it would take me about 2 weeks of the medicine to do that. So I said, fine. So we start today. And I went to the gym and I started jogging. And I started exercising.
And that helped you out.
Well, it was terrible at the beginning, but I was committed. I was going to do it. I had you guys, and I just couldn't
Give up.
So that's what happened. So and then I started reading, a lot of reading, a lot of self-help, and in 3 months I was out of the
Depression.
depression.
Good. I'm firing questions, but how do you think business is different here than in Puerto Rico?
There's no bounds to what you can do here.
Okay.
Puerto Rico is limited.
Because it's an island.
For example, for my company, I grew to control 85% of the ice cream distribution, but I couldn't do any more. There was nothing to do. I had to go in another direction if I wanted to continue the growth pattern. Here, you don't have that. Opportunities are larger. Capital is more available.
How do you feel the frozen distribution grocery business is different or similar to the restaurant business, hospitality?
Distribution and retail are different animals.
Cash flow is different, right?
Revise my notes here. I had something written about that. There's two basic elements that differ in this business. In the retail business, you wait for customers to walk in. In the distribution business, you go
and look for customers.
And look for customers. I like
looking for customers than waiting on people.
Yeah.
Meaning waiting on people to
but
come
they're
in.
both good, I would say that in the States they both function. In Puerto Rico, you had certain aspects. There was a law that protected distributorships and
made it feasible.
It made it feasible because otherwise, with a controlled market, if you had unlimited, if they could, the same brand could be distributed by a number of people, it wouldn't work. It would kill the brand. It would kill the market. It would kill the market possibilities.
What do you think is the next thing for Pig Floyd's and the brand? Now we go into Pig Floyd's.
Pig Floyd's is
now
a mature brand. Mature in the sense that it is structured and it is established with credibility and sustainability. It's time for Pig Floyd to walk. However, there are things that need to be done in conjunction with that to be able to facilitate the development of it in other markets.
Right.
And you know what they are because they have been discussed on the possibility of having
Multiple,
more than one
location. What disagreements do you feel that me and you get in?
How do we disagree?
I think, I think you're more old school. I'm the new school of doing
I never
business.
feel that there's old school in business. There are things that never cease to be the same. And I am a structured person. I think you have to plan and you have to sit down and discuss things,
Right.
because all of a sudden you discover something, but more than anything, you keep everybody advised of direction. People need direction. Now, that's done over the phone. There's very little exchange. People don't have time to sit down and talk. I prefer the way it used to be, and I think it works better. But who am I to judge?
Okay. What are your thoughts of social media?
I think it sucks. I think it's a blessing, and I think it's also
A big curse.
a curse. Yeah.
Don't you think it puts a lot of pressure on people?
It puts a lot of pressure on the world. I mean, this is bigger than that, and the direction it's taking will, if uncontrolled, destroy.
Communication?
Not communication. It will destroy all the important things like, democracy and so on and so forth, because you can publish anything and people will
Believe it.
because they see it in writing. And that's so dangerous that, it's highly irresponsible if that is not controlled, and it will have bad results, to my understanding.
Okay.
On the other hand, communication, being able to talk to somebody, to your loved ones or whatever, when you need to, being able to have
To show photos, to show your life.
show your pictures, have a direction. I'm going here. You get there, don't get lost. There's a lot of good things, but all in all, I think the bad things are more than the good things.
Okay. How do you feel when you see a line in the parking lot to the parking lot at Pig Floyd's?
I think it's the results of hard work. It's a blessing, and I thank the Lord for that. It means that there's been something that has been well done, and it calls you in to continue to examine what you're doing and how you can continue to sustain it. It's all about sustainability. How do I keep getting the same results?
Or better?
Or even better? It doesn't stop there. It has to keep going. Things don't stop. Everything
Keeps going.
Yep.
Okay, Mr. Ward, you've done amazing. Thank you for being on our podcast today.
Thank you for having me.
Thank you for saying yes to this. I think this was great. We both cried. I think there's a lot of things that my story isn't over, your story isn't over, so I think it's great that we were able to discuss it. I hope many years later we can come back here and I could have sold my company for many millions of dollars so that we could share that story. That'd be great.
But I hope you're happy on the way.
Happy on the way. True, right? But there's no work-life balance, so I'm trying to avoid that, and that's the hard part. So
There's nothing you can't do.
well, I mean, yeah, within limits, right?
There's no limits.
There's no limits.
Go inside and find it. It's all inside.
There you go. Last lesson before this is over is go inside and search for it.
Everything inside of you. There's nothing outside. Everything you need is inside. You have to go in.
There you go. Maureen would appreciate that. Yeah. Maureen would appreciate it. Thank you.
Muy appetizing.